Lieutenant Marcus Blackwood watched the plasma cuffs ignite around his wrists, with a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The blue-white energy crackled and hissed, designed to restrain even the strongest human soldier. The Hexadian commander, Supreme Enforcer Caxrel, towered over him with mandibles twitching in barely contained triumph. "Your resistance forces have failed, human," Caxrel's translator hummed with mechanical precision. "The might of the Empire will not be denied." Marcus kept his expression neutral, though centuries of experience made it difficult not to laugh. These aliens, for all their advanced technology and military might, were almost admirably predictable. Their rigid hierarchy and structured thinking made them dangerous opponents in large-scale warfare, but also left them vulnerable to someone like him. The detention chamber of the Hexadian warship hummed with energy fields and scanning arrays. 3 guard drones hovered at strategic points, their weapon systems trained on the captured human officer. Marcus could smell the distinct chemical signatures of their power cells, a scent that would have been impossible for normal human senses to detect. "Your bioscan results are interesting, Lieutenant Blackwood." A different voice cut through the air. Science Officer Vesmar stepped into view, her elongated head tilted in curiosity. "You show signs of extensive modification. Neural enhancers, muscle density amplifiers, even traces of experimental regeneration technology." Marcus allowed himself a small chuckle. Standard issue for Earth's special forces these days. The lie rolled off his tongue smoothly, reinforcing their assumptions about his unusual biology. Let them think it was technology. It was far better than them learning the truth. The scanner in Vesmar's hand chirped and whirred as she circled him. "Your core temperature is well below human norms, and these energy readings..." She paused, mandibles clicking in frustration. "They don't match any known human enhancement patterns." "Classify technology," Marcus replied with just the right mix of smugness and military discipline. "I'm not at liberty to discuss it." Caxrel stepped forward, his massive frame blocking the chamber's harsh light. "It doesn't matter. You'll be transferred to the maximum security facility on Nexus VI. Our interrogators will learn everything you know about Earth's defense systems." Marcus kept his face carefully blank, but inside he felt a surge of satisfaction. Nexus VI, exactly where he needed to be. The facility that had swallowed up dozens of human prisoners without a trace. The place where the Empire's darkest secrets were supposedly hidden away from prying eyes. "Sir," one of the junior officers called out, "the prison transport has docked. They're ready for the prisoner transfer." As the guards moved to escort him, Marcus caught a glimpse of his reflection in the polished hull plating. His eyes had changed ever so slightly, a brief flash of ancient hunger that none of the aliens noticed. He quickly suppressed it, maintaining the facade of the captured soldier. The prison transport's interior was stark and utilitarian, designed to break the spirit as much as contain the body. They secured him in a containment cell with multiple redundant force fields, enough power to hold a small army. "Comfortable, Lieutenant?" Vesmar asked, running one final scan. "The journey to Nexus VI takes 3 standard days." "I've had worse accommodations," Marcus replied, settling back against the cell wall. He could already sense the other prisoners, humans mostly, their heartbeats a distant thunder to his enhanced senses. Soon, he would learn why they had been taken, and the Empire would learn why taking human prisoners was a grave mistake. As the transport ship disengaged from the warship, Marcus closed his eyes and began to count. Not the hours until they reached their destination, but the heartbeats of his captors. Each pulse a reminder of their mortality, each beat bringing him closer to the moment when the hunter would reveal himself to the prey. The Empire had just made their greatest mistake. They had given the vampire exactly what he wanted. an invitation inside. The twin suns of Nexus VII painted the prison complex in eternal daylight, their harsh radiance reflecting off the polished metal surfaces with brutal intensity. Marcus stood in his cell, watching his skin blister and crack under the concentrated solar radiation. The pain was real enough, but far from the debilitating agony his captors expected. Fascinating, Science Officer Vesmar noted, watching through the observation window. Your augmentations are attempting to counter the radiation damage, but they're clearly overwhelmed. How long do you estimate your enhancements will last? Marcus leaned against the wall, feigning weakness while his supernatural healing fought a constant battle with the solar bombardment. Long enough, he replied, voice deliberately hoarse. The truth was, each failure of his supposed augmentations only made him stronger, his vampiric nature adapting to the new form of radiation. The cell block's automated feeding system whirred to life, depositing his daily ration, a selection of living creatures from Nexus VII's native fauna. The Hexadians believed in providing fresh sustenance to maintain their prisoners' physical condition for interrogation. Your dietary requirements are unusual, Lieutenant, Vesmar observed. Most humans prefer their food processed or cooked. Marcus picked up one of the small reptilian creatures. Special Forces diet, he explained, then bit into the animal with calculated precision. The blood was different from Earth species, thinner with an almost metallic taste. But it served its purpose. Each feeding strengthened his connection to this alien world, helping him adapt to its unique radiation. The days fell into a pattern. Solar radiation during the primary shift, intended to weaken him. Interrogations during the secondary shift, where he fed them carefully crafted lies about Earth's military capabilities. And the blessed night shift, when the prison's power grid cycled down for maintenance, allowing his body to heal and adapt. On the seventh day, Commander Caxrell visited his cell. Your resilience is remarkable, Lieutenant. Most humans begin breaking by now. Marcus looked up through half-closed eyes, playing the part of the struggling prisoner. Earth's finest, sir. We don't break easily. No, Caxrell agreed, but you will break. The radiation levels increase tomorrow. Your augmentations cannot sustain you forever. After the commander left, Marcus stretched his senses beyond the cell. 27 human heartbeats scattered throughout the complex. 12 guard rotations, 4 power substations. He'd mapped every detail during his week of captivity, all while appearing to slowly succumb to their methods. The night shift brought an unexpected visitor. A junior medical officer, her mandibles still soft with youth, approached his cell. Lieutenant, I'm here to take new baseline readings. Marcus noted her nervousness, the way her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted her scanner. Something wrong with the old ones. They don't make sense, she admitted. Your cellular degradation patterns, they're unlike anything we've seen in human subjects. It's as if your body is evolving, Marcus suggested, allowing a hint of his true nature to show in his smile. The young officer stepped back, her chemical signatures betraying her sudden fear. She left without completing her scan, and Marcus knew his time of observation was running short. They were beginning to ask the right questions. In his cell, Marcus flexed his hands, feeling the power that had built up over the past week. The radiation that should have weakened him had instead forced his ancient biology to adapt and grow stronger. Soon, very soon, the Empire would learn why Earth's legends of the undead had persisted for millennia. As the primary shift began again, bringing another day of brutal solar radiation, Marcus closed his eyes and continued to wait. The Hexadians thought they were breaking him down, but they were only charging the battery. When the time came, their perfect prison would become his perfect hunting ground. Lieutenant Jessica Martinez stared at the interrogation room's monitors with growing frustration. The neural scanner's display showed nothing but static, just like yesterday and the day before. 2 weeks of questioning Lieutenant Blackwood had yielded more questions than answers. "Your bio readings are inconsistent again," she said, watching her prisoner through the one-way force field. "Care to explain why our most advanced truth detection systems can't get a baseline on you?" Marcus shrugged, the motion deliberately military in its precision. "Maybe your equipment isn't calibrated for human enhancement packages. Or maybe," Martines leaned forward, her dark eyes narrowing, "you're not what you appear to be at all." The words hung in the air between them. For a moment, Marcus allowed himself to really look at her. A fellow human playing a deep game. Her presence here, as an interrogator, suggested layers of complexity he hadn't initially expected. "Interesting theory," he replied, then added with just a touch of ancient hunger in his voice, "Care to test it?" Martinez's heart rate spiked. Fear, but also recognition. She knew something was wrong with her prisoner, but not quite what. The game had just become more interesting. "Report your findings, Lieutenant Martinez." Commander Caxrell's voice crackled through the communication system. "The prisoner continues to resist standard interrogation methods," she responded, never taking her eyes off Marcus. "Request permission to escalate to enhanced procedures." Marcus noticed the slight emphasis on enhanced. A warning, perhaps? The complex dance of loyalties and secrets in this facility was becoming more intriguing by the day. "Permission granted," Caxrell replied. "But be careful. We've lost 3 guard drones to unexplained malfunctions this week. The prisoner may be more dangerous than he appears." After the commander signed off, Martines activated the room's privacy protocols. "The other prisoners are showing unusual symptoms. Small puncture wounds, extreme fatigue, memory loss. Would you know anything about that?" Marcus smiled, showing just a hint of fang. "Perhaps they're not getting enough iron in their diet." "This isn't a game, Blackwood," Martines hissed, her facade cracking slightly. "Whatever you are, whatever you're planning, it's putting the other prisoners at risk." "On the contrary," Marcus replied, his voice dropping to a whisper that only another human could hear. "I'm keeping them alive. My blood has healing properties, Lieutenant. Or should I say, Agent Martinez." Her hand twitched toward a hidden pocket, not standard prison guard equipment. "You're supposed to be a myth, a story to scare children. And yet here I am, helping your deep cover operation." Marcus leaned back, casual despite his restraints. "The question is, are you here to stop the Empire's experiments, or to steal them?" Before she could answer, the facility's lights flickered. Another malfunction, he'd arranged. In that brief moment of darkness, Marcus moved faster than any camera could track, his fangs grazing her neck just enough to taste. Earth Intelligence Division. Her blood revealed the truth to him, working to expose the Empire's illegal genetic research. When the lights returned, he was back in his original position. Martinez's hand was at her neck, her eyes wide with the understanding of what he could have done, what he had chosen not to do. "We could help each other," she said finally, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. "There are things happening in the lower levels that need to be stopped." "I know," Marcus replied. "I can smell the fear from here. But remember, Agent Martinez, when everything goes dark, and it will go dark, stay in your quarters. What hunts in the shadows might not recognize you as an ally." As she left the interrogation room, Marcus settled back to wait. The pieces were falling into place. A human agent, hidden experiments, and the growing fear among the guards. Soon, very soon, the hunter would begin his real work. Outside his cell, another guard drone sparked and died, its power core mysteriously drained dry. The maintenance shaft was barely wide enough for a human to crawl through, but Marcus moved like living shadow through its confines. 3 weeks of careful planning had led to this moment. Above him, the prison's night shift guards continued their rounds, unaware that their most dangerous prisoner had slipped away during another convenient power fluctuation. His enhanced senses led him deeper into the facility's restricted section. The air here carried the sharp sting of antiseptic and the unmistakable copper scent of human blood. Following the trail, he found himself looking down through a ventilation grate into a vast laboratory complex. What he saw made even his ancient blood run cold. Rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing a human subject. Medical displays flickered with vital signs and research notes. Marcus counted at least 30 pods, each holding someone who had officially been listed as missing in action during the war. The latest trial shows promise. A voice echoed through the chamber. Dr. William Anderson, another human, but his lab coat bore the Empire's insignia. Subject 27's genetic structure is adapting to the modifications. Marcus watched as Anderson approached one of the pods, his movements betraying a mixture of scientific fascination and barely concealed horror. The man was both researcher and prisoner. That much was clear. "Very good, Doctor," Science Officer Vesmar replied, her mandibles clicking with excitement. "The Empire will be most pleased. Once we understand how human DNA can adapt so readily to environmental changes, we can finally address our species' greatest weakness." Marcus shifted position for a better view, his eyes focusing on the medical displays. The genetic sequences shown there were unlike anything he'd seen before. Hybrid structures that merged human adaptability with Hexadian stability. "There's something wrong with the latest samples," Anderson said, his voice shaking slightly. "We're seeing anomalies, mutations that don't follow any pattern we've documented. It's as if something is accelerating the process." Marcus smiled in the darkness. His blood, given to the prisoners over the past weeks, was already working its way through the facility's test subjects. The Empire scientists were playing with forces they couldn't comprehend. "Show me," Vesmar demanded, moving to a nearby console. "These readings, they're similar to the anomalies we're seeing in Lieutenant Blackwood's cell. Could there be a connection?" Anderson's heart rate spiked, fear and recognition. "These patterns, I've seen them before, in old Earth medical texts, but they were supposed to be myths, stories of..." "Of what, Doctor?" Vesmar's tone had grown sharp. "Nothing," Anderson replied too quickly. "Just old legends, not scientific." Marcus had heard enough. The situation was worse than Earth intelligence had suspected. The Empire wasn't just studying human adaptability. They were trying to engineer it into their own species. If they got their hands on his vampiric DNA, the results would be catastrophic. As he prepared to retreat, a new scent caught his attention. Lieutenant Martinez was approaching the laboratory, her heartbeat steady but alert. She'd been tracking him, following the trail of disabled security systems. Perfect. Marcus extracted a small data drive from his prison uniform. Technology smuggled in through means even the Empire's best scanners couldn't detect. With practiced ease, he connected it to the ventilation system's power grid. In exactly 6 hours, every piece of research data would be transmitted to both Earth intelligence and the prison's main computer system. Let everyone see what the Empire had been hiding. He took one last look at the pods, at the humans being used as test subjects. Soon, very soon, they would all be free. But first, the Empire needed to learn why some legends were best left in the dark. As he slipped back into the maintenance shaft, Marcus heard Anderson whisper something that made him smile. "God help us all if it's really him." The vampire of Echo Squadron. The facility's main power core erupted in a cascade of sparks and failing systems. Marcus stood in his cell, watching the emergency lights paint the corridors in crimson. His enhanced hearing picked up the chaos spreading through the prison. Guards rushing to stations, backup generators groaning to life, and the sweet symphony of fear beginning to build. Full lockdown protocols initiated, the automated system announced. All personnel report to emergency stations. Commander Caxrell's voice cut through the comm systems. Security teams to the detention level. The power surge originated from cell block 7. Contain the prisoner at all costs. Marcus flexed his hands, feeling the strength built up over weeks of radiation exposure and careful feeding. The plasma cuffs around his wrists flickered once, twice, then failed completely as the last emergency circuit breaker blew. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," he said softly to the 3 guard drones that had just entered his cell block, their weapons primed. The machines hesitated, their combat algorithms detecting something their programmers had never accounted for: the presence of a predator far older than their empire. The first drone fired. Marcus moved like liquid shadow, the energy bolt passing through the space he'd occupied a millisecond before. His hand punched through the drone's central processor, crushing its core while absorbing its remaining power. The other 2 drones backed away, their threat assessment programs screaming impossible warnings. "Lieutenant Blackwood," Vesmar's voice echoed through the speakers. "Stand down immediately. The radiation levels in that section are being raised to maximum." Marcus laughed, the sound echoing through the metal corridors. "Did you really think that was weakening me?" He crushed the second drone's head with casual ease. "I haven't fed properly in weeks. Time to change that." The third drone tried to retreat, but Marcus was already there, his movement too fast for its tracking systems. As it fell, he absorbed its power too, adding to the energy coursing through his enhanced biology. Security teams were converging on his position. He could hear their formations, smell their fear. These weren't the disciplined soldiers he'd first encountered. These were guards who had just watched their most advanced security measures fail against something they couldn't comprehend. "All personnel, be advised," Lieutenant Martinez's voice cut through the chaos. "The prisoner has unknown capabilities. Do not engage directly. Repeat, do not engage." Marcus smiled, knowing she was trying to save lives, but it was too late for warnings. He had a mission to complete, and the Empire had given him everything he needed: access to their facility, knowledge of their experiments, and most importantly, the darkness they had created in their own hearts. The first security team rounded the corner, energy weapons charge. Marcus moved through them like a nightmare made real, each strike precisely calculated to incapacitate rather than kill. He had no interest in unnecessary death. Fear would serve his purpose better than corpses. "Commander," one of the guards screamed into his comm unit, "he's not human." "He's not." The message cut off as Marcus disabled his communication device along with his consciousness. The facility's automated defense systems activated, filling the corridors with energy fields designed to stop any escape attempt. Marcus phased through them like mist, his vampiric nature adapted now to even the Empire's most advanced containment technology. "Fascinating," he heard Dr. Anderson's voice through a nearby terminal. "The genetic markers we've been studying, they're nothing compared to what he is. The Empire's been looking in the wrong direction all along." Marcus reached the central security hub, where Caxrell had barricaded himself with his elite guards. The commander's mandibles clicked in a pattern that indicated both fear and determination. "What are you?" Caxrell demanded. Marcus's eyes gleamed in the emergency lighting, his voice carrying centuries of power. "I am what humanity became when we learned to turn our darkest fears into weapons. Now let's discuss those experiments in the lower levels." Darkness claimed half the facility as Marcus systematically destroyed power generator after power generator. The Hexadian guards, their species evolved under bright binary suns, found themselves fighting in an environment that made their compound eyes nearly useless. Their thermal imaging systems, usually reliable against human opponents, showed only empty corridors where Marcus had been moments before. "Echo 7, report status." A panicked voice crackled through the emergency channels. Static answered. Echo 7 is currently indisposed. Marcus's voice whispered through every communication device in the sector, a trick he'd learned centuries ago. As are Echo 3 through 6, would you like to know what their final heartbeats sounded like? Commander Caxrell's voice boomed through the main speakers, trying to rally his forces. Maintain formation. He's only one prisoner. He can't be everywhere at once. Are you sure about that, Commander? Marcus's voice echoed from multiple directions, the acoustics of the metal corridors making it impossible to pinpoint the source. Your scientists were so interested in human adaptability. Let me show you what centuries of evolution can really do. A squad of elite guards moved in perfect formation down level 3, their training holding despite their fear. Their leader activated a portable sun lamp designed to duplicate the harsh light of their homeworld. Marcus materialized from the ceiling behind them, moving through solid metal as if it were mist. Impressive equipment, he said, making them spin around in panic. But I've had weeks to adapt to your artificial sunlight. Would you like to see how? The sun lamp shattered, plunging the corridor into total darkness. The guards fired blindly, their energy weapons creating brief flashes that only made the shadows deeper. When the shooting stopped, their leader found himself alone. His squad vanished without a sound. This is Lieutenant Martinez to all personnel. Her voice cut through the chaos. Fall back to the upper levels. I repeat, fall back to the upper levels. Do not attempt to engage the entity. Marcus smiled at her choice of words. Entity. A good way to describe something they had no frame of reference for. He could sense her moving through the upper levels, carefully orchestrating the evacuation of non-essential personnel. Smart woman, getting the civilians out of the way. Dr. Anderson's voice suddenly came through a private channel, meant only for command staff. The genetic samples are showing unprecedented activity. Whatever he is, his presence is affecting the test subjects. They're waking up. Seal the laboratory. Vesmar ordered, her usually calm voice edged with panic. We can't let those subjects out. The containment protocols are already compromised. Marcus interrupted, his voice coming through their secure channel. Did you really think I spent these weeks doing nothing? My blood has been working its way through your test subjects, healing them, preparing them. Would you like to see the results? As if on cue, alarms began blaring from the lower levels. The stasis pods were opening, their occupants awakening with something extra in their veins. Not enough to turn them, but enough to give them strength they'd need for what was coming. What have you done? Caxrell demanded. I've given them a fighting chance, Marcus replied, now standing in the commander's private chamber, though the security feeds showed him still moving through the lower levels. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our adaptability. It's our ability to turn the darkness itself into a weapon against those who would harm us. The commander reached for his sidearm, but Marcus was already gone, his laughter echoing through the facility's dying systems. Throughout the complex, the rescued test subjects were rising, their bodies enhanced by the vampire's blood, their minds clear for the first time in months. The hunt was reaching its climax, and the Empire was about to learn why Earth's legends of the night had endured for so long. Major Robert Thompson opened his eyes for the first time in 3 months, the stasis pod's cover sliding away with a hydraulic hiss. His mind was clear, his body thrumming with an energy he'd never felt before. Around him, other pods were opening, releasing more test subjects. Soldiers, scientists, and civilians who had been taken by the Empire. Welcome back, Major, a voice said from the shadows. Marcus stepped into view, his eyes glowing with ancient power. How do you feel? Thompson flexed his hands, feeling strength course through his enhanced body. Like I could tear through a battalion. Your blood. Just enough to heal and enhance, not to turn, Marcus confirmed. I need soldiers, not vampires. The Empire's about to learn why taking human prisoners was their greatest mistake. The laboratory's emergency lights cast everything in a red glow as more freed prisoners gathered. Dr. Anderson worked quickly at a console, his fingers flying over the controls. I've locked down the research data and initiated the purge protocols. They won't be able to replicate these experiments. Lieutenant Martinez appeared at the laboratory's entrance, her weapon drawn, but pointed down. The upper levels are clear. Non-combat personnel have been evacuated to the safe zones. We have maybe 20 minutes before their reinforcements arrive from the orbital station. Marcus nodded, his tactical mind already processing the information. Major Thompson, your people are enhanced but not immortal. Split them into fire teams. Focus on securing the armory and communications center. Thompson started organizing the freed prisoners, their military training coming back instantly. Those who had been civilians were paired with soldiers, creating balanced teams that could handle whatever they encountered. They're sealing the bulkheads, Anderson called out, his eyes fixed on the security feeds, trying to trap us in the lower levels. Marcus smiled, his fangs gleaming in the red light. Let them try. Lieutenant Martinez, your Earth intelligence code still active? She nodded, moving to a different console. Already done. The facility's schematics and research data are being transmitted to both Earth Command and the local network. Everyone will know what they've been doing here. The first explosion rocked the facility as Thompson's teams began their assault. The enhanced humans moved with supernatural speed and strength, their bodies supercharged by Marcus's blood. The Hexadian guards found themselves fighting an enemy that matched their physical capabilities while exceeding their tactical training. Commander Caxrell is moving to the secondary command center, Martins reported, watching the security feeds. Science Officer Vesmar is with him. They're trying to delete the backup servers. They won't succeed, Marcus said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. Major, take your team and... An alert blared through the facility. Warning. Orbital strike authorized. Facility purge initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately. They're going to destroy the whole complex, Anderson said in horror, with everyone still inside. Marcus's expression hardened. No, they're not. He turned to Thompson. Major, get these people to the emergency shuttles. Martinez, make sure that data transmission completes. Anderson, you're with me. We're going to have a final word with the commander. Thompson saluted, then led his teams toward the upper levels. The enhanced humans moved like a well-oiled machine, covering each other as they fought their way through the remaining guards. Marcus watched them go, pride mixing with his predatory nature. These were his people, not just prey or weapons, but the very essence of human adaptability and strength. The Empire had tried to break them, study them, change them. Instead, they'd only made them stronger. They never understood, did they? Anderson asked as they moved toward the command center. What makes humans different? No, Marcus replied, his voice echoing through the dying facility. They thought they could cage our nightmares. They never realized our monsters fight for us. The secondary command center's doors melted away like ice under a blowtorch as Marcus made his final approach. Behind him, the sounds of battle echoed through the facility. Major Thompson's teams securing their escape route, while Lieutenant Martinez coordinated with the incoming Earth fleet. Commander Caxrell and Science Officer Vesmar stood their ground, surrounded by their last loyal guards. Through the armored windows, the first flashes of orbital bombardment lit up the sky. You've lost, Lieutenant Blackwood, Caxrell declared, his mandibles clicking in a pattern that suggested both fear and defiance. The orbital strike will destroy all evidence of our work here. Marcus stepped through the molten remains of the door, Dr. Anderson close behind him. Evidence. Look around you, Commander. Your research data is already spreading across every network in this sector. But more importantly, He smiled, showing his fangs. "I want you to see what you've created." The main screen flickered to life, showing multiple camera feeds. Enhanced humans moving with supernatural grace, taking down elite guards with ease. Former test subjects, their bodies strengthened by vampire blood, coordinating with military precision. "Impossible," Vesmar whispered, her scientific mind unable to process what she was seeing. The genetic modifications were never this successful. This level of enhancement. "Because you were looking in the wrong direction," Anderson interjected, his voice steady. "You wanted to understand human adaptability, but you never considered that our greatest adaptations might come from our darkest myths." The facility shook as another orbital strike hit the outer perimeter. Marcus could hear the Earth fleet engaging the Empire's ships in orbit, could sense the tide of battle turning. "What are you?" "Cax," Rel demanded again, his weapon trained on Marcus's heart. "I am what humanity became when we learned to embrace our shadows," Marcus replied, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Every species has its monsters, Commander. The difference is, we made ours into weapons." A message from Thompson came through. "Shuttles secured. All test subjects evacuated. Earth fleet has established a corridor through their blockade." Marcus nodded to Anderson, who began the final stage of the facility's data purge. "The Empire will learn from this, Commander. Every human you capture could be something more than they appear. Every prison could hide a predator." "You think this changes anything?" Vesmar asked, her scientific curiosity still fighting with her fear. "The Empire will simply adapt, create new containment protocols." "No," Marcus cut her off. "You'll do something far more dangerous. You'll start looking for more of us. And in doing so, you'll wake things that should have stayed sleeping." His eyes glowed with ancient power. "Consider this a warning." The facility's self-destruct sequence began its final countdown. Marcus could hear the last shuttles launching, carrying the freed prisoners to safety. His mission was complete. The Empire's experiments exposed, their prisoners freed, and most importantly, a message delivered. "Lieutenant Martinez sends her regards," Marcus said, as he turned to leave. "She'll make sure your research notes make for fascinating reading back on Earth. A full account of how the mighty Empire was brought down by one of humanity's oldest nightmares." As he and Anderson made their way to the final shuttle, Marcus felt a deep satisfaction. The Empire had sought to understand human adaptability, to weaponize it for their own use. Instead, they'd learned why Earth's legends of the night had persisted for so long. Because sometimes, the monsters were on humanity's side. The facility collapsed behind them, taking its secrets to the grave. But the story would spread throughout the Empire. Never take human prisoners, for you never know which of them might be something more than human. Which of them might be a nightmare given form, a legend made real. Which of them might be the vampire?